Welcome back to the Mina Show featuring Lenny, Monday Night Football recap edition. Domonique, I'd like to start today's episode by reading a quick prepared statement. This will only take about 30 seconds. It's from the desk of Mina Kimes. Wrote it on the old notes app. Attention, Mike Tomlin. You were right. I was wrong. 2 games in, I can confidently say it was the correct decision to switch to Russell Wilson at quarterback. I was skeptical week 1. I may have alluded to some underthrown balls that were deep bailed out. But last night, in the fourth quarter of your win over the New York Giants, he threw some of the best passes I've seen him throw since before the pandemic. His command of the offense, the ability to execute under center play action has clearly unlocked some of the receivers in this Steelers passing attack. Wasn't perfect. Obviously, he fumbled, a couple of sacks, whatnot, but it was obviously the right decision. There is a reason why you are one of the best coaches in NFL history, and you win.
Can I sign my name on that letter? I mean, I wasn't as strident as you, but I also was not.
Now it's all on me.
No, I was asking to sign on the letter also, but I didn't expect Russell to do it, but I think we all recognized that there were things that Fields wasn't doing well, and I figured it was worth trying someone else because Fields is not hitting these open receivers. And honestly, if you asked me to bet money, I would have said no. Like I agreed with the idea to roll Russell out there because when you watch it, and you saw these too, we talked about it, was like Fields was just holding on to the ball and not taking attempts that should have been there.
Yeah.
And I didn't think Russell was going to be the answer, but I think you had a little bit of like couching in there where you just started referencing the fumbles and whatnot. But
that was a bad fumble. I'm not going to pretend like it was perfect, but
I know. But I mean, it's in an apology. You're not. It's kind of like, I'm sorry for yelling at you, but you did leave your socks in the middle of the floor. Like right now, it's an apology. So it's just an apology standalone.
It's my job to give analysis. The analysis is that it was obviously the correct decision. I thought Russell played really well, and I mean there were a couple passes in this game. I'm.
Yeah.
This is not couching. This is reality. Some of those throws he made, I have not seen him make in quite some time. So for those who missed it, I don't know why you would listen to this. I guess you could listen to it if you skipped the game and you wanted to know what happened.
Yeah.
The Steelers won 26-18, but that the score didn't really, like, they were firmly in control the entire game. Even in the first half, they were moving the ball really well on offense, running the ball against a admittedly dismal Giants run defense that we'll talk about. We'll talk about the Giants side in the second part, because they had some interesting decisions to make, but they just couldn't get it done in the red zone. Then in the second half, the first deep ball, I was like, first of all, Van Jefferson made maybe like the best catch of his career, but then holy smokes, they're both corners. The one to Calvin Austin, who also had incredible special teams touchdown, versus cover one. They blitzed him, just gorgeous. And then again, the corner to Pickens, again versus a blitz, again versus man coverage. 2 beautiful passes. And yeah, the Steelers offense looks better than it has in quite some time.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I know you're not couching, but if one wanted to couch, they could look at the teams that they beat. Like the New York run is the New York run. He did put up a lot of points against the New York teams, which aren't particularly good teams. But I mean, we're not looking to couch. Hypothetically, if someone was couching, that's what they would say. But those passes, like those would have worked against anyone's coverage at a point. And those were the best thing about it. What?
No, you said anyone's coverage. I mean, the one thing I'll be interested in seeing, everything I say is going to be interpreted as criticism. It's not criticism. However, we have seen, when I think back to when Russell looked this good, you don't really want to play single high against him. And New York played a hell of a lot of it in this one. He went 12 for 15 for 199 yards versus single high, much less successful when they played split safety, 7 for 12 for 75 yards. If I was a defense, seeing what I've seen over the last couple of weeks, seeing those throws that he's making, I would certainly try to get him to check it down a little bit or take away some of those one-on-ones in coverage.
Yeah, I guess my point was not any particular coverage, but the how tight the coverage was. Like
Yeah.
those passes were perfect passes, and the cool thing about it was it was exactly what we know Russ is good at is those like high arcing teardrop type passes, and they showed up in when he got those opportunities. I think it will be interesting to see when we start talking about it. And I guess I don't want to spin it forward too far, and you stop me if I'm getting ahead of myself, but this team has a defense that's good enough to
Yeah.
go to do anything. Um, the question is, when stuff gets ugly, will Russell revert to the hold on to the ball too long, try to make things happen, and then that becomes a detrimental thing for this team because that wasn't what Fields was doing. He was kind of doing the opposite.
Yeah.
But it doesn't give you faith that Fields can do it. But I am interested to see the version of Russell now under extreme pressure and pressing to make things happen.
Well, the other thing with Russ, and this I'll really draw on um, watching him sort of the last few years in Seattle, it really is much better when the run game is. This is something
Yeah,
I have talked about a lot on this podcast. I underappreciated about his game in Seattle. In fact, I was part of the like, just let Russ air it out constantly.
yeah,
Why are you running the ball so much, Pete Carroll? And there were times where they ran the ball too much. There are certainly moments, but you see that his style of play does dovetail with an efficient rushing attack because I alluded to again the
right.
single high you're getting, and the rushing attack looks fantastic, but the Giants' run defense is truly horrible. So I think the bigger test will be when they go up against a better run defense. I think they've got the Ravens in a couple of weeks. Can't remember who they're playing next week, but point is, certainly he's unlocked something with the deep passing game. I would also note, Domonique, I thought the other thing that impressed me, some of the plays he made throwing on the move, booting, I thought
Yeah,
looked really accurate. And, the play action stuff is obviously working, and it's getting players like Darnell Washington involved who would not otherwise be a part of this offense. But because of that play action passing attack, you get the delightful visual of him absolutely trucking for a cornerback. If you were a cornerback and Darnell Washington was bearing down on you, what would you do?
I mean, saw it through the knees. Obviously, like if you're gonna jump over me, I will take that embarrassment. You're not gonna embarrass me and knock me out. Like that's what's not gonna happen. So yeah, I learned that lesson. I was always one of the smallest guys on the team or in the league, so I learned that in college pretty quickly. It's like I'm not trying to prove a point. You're gonna have to hurdle me.
I saw a tweet a few weeks ago. I think it was from Brett Coleman saying that those Animorphs books where they show like an animal.
Yeah, right.
Darnell Washington looks like an anamorph of caught between a tight end and an offensive tackle, which
I do think that all the questions that we may have, or maybe not you, but I still have about Russ will get answered. As it's the good thing and the bad thing about the rest of their schedule is it's got to be one of the toughest in the league from here on out. And
really.
they will be, yeah, they have, I mean, they have their divisional opponents, all of them. They haven't had any of those yet. And they have the Chiefs and they have the Commanders, if I think off the top of my head. So that's six
Sorry, yeah.
games.
Commanders,
Yeah,
Ravens, Browns, Bengals. So that three stretch.
yeah,
Because the Commanders defense, I have to give them
yeah.
credit. They
It's
have been
gotten better.
playing a lot better. Yeah, that's another L that I've had to take because I did not think that unit was very good at all. But I thought they were really good against Chicago. And then, yeah, the Ravens, we're going to talk about the Ravens defense. I actually think the Ravens defense is funny because they give up a lot of
Yeah.
big plays, but they're really good against the run. So I think they
Mhm.
might cause some different complications. You really quick. I do want to ask you about the Steelers defense because I think we all agree this defense is obviously good enough. They're very good. The pass rush is amazing. I was surprised by how bad they were against the run though last night against New York. What did you think watching that?
Yeah, no, it was surprising. I think they had that big play towards the end of the game to Tracy, which it wasn't like offensive night or run night made up of only one play. I think it didn't feel as bad watching it because, like you mentioned, it felt like the Steelers were in control. This morning, when I looked at the numbers, I was like, ugh. They like actually ran the ball really well against the Steelers. But yeah, I mean, they had a good day defensively though, so like I'm not going to make too much of it right now. Maybe if this continues to be a problem for them, but yeah, generally this defense is good, and having somebody like T.J. Watt who just like no matter what, if it's the end of the game and you got the lead, you know he's going to get a sack.
It's funny. There was so much dialogue afterwards about like how do you not chip TJ Watt, right? Like, because like a normal pass rusher, we would give the offense grief if they like put a tight end on them or something.
Yeah.
But like Jermaine Illuminor was on TJ Watt. He was just
Yeah.
singling him, but he's
Yeah.
so good. And it was a mistake by Daniel Jones, who we'll talk about momentarily, because he was supposed to, I believe, shift in. Theo Johnson was supposed to help out there, and he didn't do it, and he admitted it. Yeah, the pass rush is obviously incredible. And there were players I thought who didn't play great who have been good this year. Dante Jackson is the one who comes to mind. He's been excellent this year, but he obviously got toasted by Darius Slayton, who's quietly quite good, I think, and struggled in run defense as well. So I think that there were some uncharacteristic mistakes, but like, the Steelers pass rush is insane. I mean, they pressured Daniel Jones on 51% of dropbacks, which brings me, I guess, to the Giants side of it, Domonique. I find it so hard to be firm about Daniel Jones because it's just like things compounding, right? Like to my eye, he is not an elevator. He is obviously not one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL, but he also, is not in a great situation. And obviously that wasn't all his fault, even though sometimes it feels like he's got like blinders on in the pocket. What did you think watching him last night?
Yeah, I mean, nothing new. It's hard to argue for him when he overthrows people that end up in interceptions, and then it's also hard to like put it all on him when he's under pressure, and he has been his entire career. Where it's like, all right, that's going to change the way you play. It's going to change the way you think about it. He has neighbors now who's seems to have he's a incredible offensive talent, but also has a bit of the dropsies, it seems like, early in his career, which is more than I haven't looked at the numbers, but I feel like anecdotally I see him drop passes more than I expect, but he's still an incredible player. And so, like, yeah, I think the Daniel Jones thing is not going to change. And what he would have been in a different situation, we'll never know. But in this situation, this is who he is. And obviously, it's not going to be the long term answer in New York.
The neighbors drop, the final one, was, I think, kind of emblematic of what I'm talking about, right? Because it was a drop, no doubt. He should have caught that ball, but it was also like a bad ball. So
Yeah.
It's always the case with Daniel Jones. It's like the things around him aren't great, but he makes them worse. That's, I guess, where I would land on this. The interesting decision, Domonique, for New York is so they're 2-6. At some point, he might get the old Russell Wilson in Denver treatment where they're worried about playing him for fear of injuring him because that would trigger the guarantee. Drew Lock is his backup. The problem is I don't think he's been bad enough to be benched. So they're like in this kind of very challenging no man's land.
Yeah, I mean, I hate this situation, and I'm sure you would guess that I don't like the idea of making these. Oh, we got a Mina reaction. What happened? Is that a Schefter bomb or something?
Schefter just reported QB change for the Colts. Indianapolis is benching former first-round pick Anthony Richardson, turning to veteran Joe Flacco. Wow.
Yeah, I actually, I knew that this morning.
Okay, all right, Mr. In the Know, Mr. Scoops.
I've been knowing stuff.
Thanks for letting me know.
I mean, I'm not gonna be tweeting stuff out or whatever.
You just told me.
I'm sorry. I didn't think it was that important.
We're gonna talk about that. You want to talk about it, or do you want to stake on Jones for a second?
Last time I checked, it's the Mina Kime show featuring Lenny. So you let me know.
We're gonna talk about Anthony Richardson first thing after the break. Let's do that. Let's keep going because I do want to give the Giants.
Yeah. So
time we're gonna talk about the Giants in depth on it.
So the Daniel Jones thing, I think, like I was saying, is that you wouldn't be surprised by how I would react to that. It's like I hate when these business decisions leak into like how you run a team. I can't imagine being on a team where it's clear that one player is better than the other, but we are going to bench him in order to protect ourselves going forward financially. And this could be lead us right into that Anthony Richardson conversation at some point also, because those decisions are there the same. And like, it'd be hard for me. I've never been on a team like this, but it'd be hard for me as a coach or a general manager to, like, in good conscience, tell my team, you go out there and keep playing, doing the best you can, but we're not going to give you the best chance to win because we don't want to get tied down by a contract for a player.
tough because I don't think he's that much better than Drew Lock, though. So it's not,
Yeah.
it's not like an obvious.
But I think the story matters though. So like I get you. If it didn't have so much attention, that's something you could pull off. But in this situation, everyone in that locker room is going to know we're benching him so that we don't have to pay him, and it's going to look bad, whether it's true or false. Like the perception is going to be like we don't care about you guys. Go out there and play. Yeah.
Derek Carr is the better comp than Russell Wilson because that's what the Raiders did with Derek Carr. Have suffered for it since in some ways. I think it's kind of a thing they might do like week 17, right? But they're in a tough spot because again, you look at this roster and like this draft class looks good. I mean, Tyrone Tracy, I know I was kind of roasting the Steelers run defense, but he's awesome, dude. Like that guy has juice. He clearly has a different gear. He looks really explosive. He's tough, also running between the tackles. So he's a hit. Obviously, Neighbors is a hit. Deonte Banks was benched. Didn't see that one coming. That kind of surprised me. I guess this feels like a roster that is in transition, and I think probably is going to have to enter a full rebuild. Yeah.
Which is so terrible because it feels like they've been in rebuild mode for a while. So it doesn't feel like they have enough pieces to be like a player away or decision away. It does feel like you have to enter full rebuild. And I'm not sure what you do with the talented players you have now. But I guess the ones like Neighbors, Tracy, those guys are young. I don't know, maybe you feel different about Sexy Dexy or somebody else like that.
That's the one that I'm interested in seeing what happens because this is an expensive defensive line. I don't think they're going to, I could see them trading like Azeez Ojulari, who's been good recently, and he's entering his final year, I believe, of his contract because that is a very expensive defensive line after the trade for Burns. And there's good players. Like I mentioned some of the players they drafted. Drew Phillips is good. Okereke, who forced a fumble, is excellent. So maybe, I don't know. It's tough. They're not a totally bereft football team, but it feels like this offensive line has gotten better, but it's still a work in progress. And then obviously the quarterback position is one that they still have to address. I'll be interested in seeing what they do at the trade deadline if any of those players are on the move. I think that'll tell us a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's what you saw happen in Washington and Houston the last couple of years is like what everyone is chasing. Where it's like, you get that guy, then all of a sudden everyone else, because if they're able to nail that pick, and the thing is that guy, just because that guy was in the draft the last 2 years and the Texans aren't as great as they once were, that guy is rarely in the draft. Like it's a tough way to run your organization when you're trying to hit the lottery.
Be interested in also seeing what happens with the GM and the coach because
not a good argument. I mean, I actually think there's a better argument for Dable, but I mean, it's hard to.
I mean, the 2-point conversion play should have worked.
I've been arguing with people about that Washington Hail Mary play, and like ridiculously defending the coaches because of those final 2 plays. And this is like that. It's a similar situation where it's like, all right, the play should have worked. The fact that it didn't work is like, it's not Daboll's fault. The fact that it didn't work is because the players fell asleep. Like if I have to coach you to the point where I say, hey, if a guy runs across the line, block him, then I can't do nothing more, man.
Yeah, it's not like the Colts play. It was extremely visually hilarious, though. So we'll always have that. Feels like the beginning of the end of the Daniel Jones era. New York fans, at least you have clarity. That's nice. I don't know if you have clarity about what to do this year per our discussion. I think it's very tricky with the quarterback and the handling of it, but I do think you have clarity over what's, at least this contract was structured so that if he doesn't get injured, you do have a clean out. It wasn't like a deal that you were super locked in for a long time. And there are good players on this team, and we just named a ton of them. So we'll see what happens in New York. It's really going to come down to the quarterback change. Speaking of quarterback changes, let's take a quick break, come back, and let's address the Anthony Richardson move. Whew. Why should you bet with Caesars Sportsbook? 2 words, Caesars Rewards. Every bet brings you closer to the types of benefits only Caesars can offer. Hotel stays, VIP experiences, sports and concert tickets, and more. It's not just an app, it's an empire. All right. So one of my woofs was the Seahawks. I'll just knock that out. We don't have to do that. Let's do Anthony Richardson for our first woof instead of starting with a winner. So as I said, news broke today that they are benching him, that they are switching to Joe Flacco. This comes after Anthony Richardson had a very eventful game in which he stirred up a hornet's nest by taking himself out for one play and then admitting it, crucially, and also had a very bad stat line that is, we can talk about that and what it actually looked like on the field. But let's start with just the decision. Is this a good decision? Do you agree with it?
Yeah, I think it's a good decision. I agree with
Really?
it. Yeah. I mean, given the things I know about that situation, there's no reason to believe that it's going to get better. And I think there is there's managing the locker room, and I think this is the right move to manage the locker room. There's managing Anthony Richardson's career, and I think this is the right move for managing Anthony Richardson's career. I think that there has to be, he needs major improvement, and he needs a level of commitment and focus and attention to detail that he has not shown so far. And this is a way to get his attention. I actually think this is the best decision for everybody. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But I think the path that he was on was not a path that was going to lead to improvement, at least not at the level that he needed, because his numbers are historically bad as far
Yeah.
as completion and percentage. And watching the game, you see too many plays that are what? Just scratch your head at how insanely inaccurate he is.
I'm so torn on this, Dominique, because that game, I felt, first of all, I want to say I don't think his box score reflected what we saw in the game. Others have pointed this
Right.
out. There were a lot of drops. There were some
Yeah.
really beautiful throws that were not caught in that
Right.
game. I thought some really good plays by him in terms of how he managed the pocket. Um, but there were also some moments that, like you said, made me go, "What?
Yeah.
What?" Right? So I have mixed feelings about it, I guess. I think why it's so hard for me is because I don't think that there is a one size fits all solution when it comes to quarterback development. I think
Right.
there are some players who have clearly been served by sitting and learning. Jordan Love is kind of the archetypal example right now. And then there are players who have gotten better by playing football over the course of their career. Just the more they played, the better they got, and have just needed reps and opportunities. We're seeing a lot of guys who didn't are playing their best football of their career, like your Bakers, your Goffs, your Mayfields, or whatever. It's a very different situation. So I guess I just can't say every young quarterback should sit or every young quarterback should
Yeah.
play. It just feels like it's so specific to the player. And I think that's where internally I don't like this decision if it means they're calling it on Richardson.
Yeah.
I think it's way too early to call it. I do like it if they actually believe it's what's best for his development. And that's something that I don't know. And I'm not saying that they made the right move, but I guess it's their assessment of, if it's their assessment that this is what's best for him and he's going to be better later in the season or next year, then I agree with it. But I don't know if it's true.
He makes plays that no one else can make, and that's tantalizing and exciting. And I guess Josh Allen, he makes plays that only he and Josh Allen can make from a running the ball standpoint and arm strength standpoint. That's never going to go away, or at least not for the short term future. The problem is the mistakes that he makes seem to me to reflect someone who doesn't have a complete grasp of what's going on. And week to week preparation is not about getting a general grasp about the NFL game. It's about preparing for, it's like building on a foundation. It feels like so many of his foundational pieces are underdeveloped, that there's going to take some time to develop, and you can't develop those in season. It's really hard to do. And a player like him, the promise of a player like him is the running ability will raise the floor and allow you to get time to add these other things. And I think he probably could learn and develop faster if he was playing, if he was playing, if his running ability was good enough to keep them competitive. But it's not, combined with his like injury history. So that's the thing, is like there's so much for him to adjust to, that I don't think the right thing to do is to put him out there on a week basis, and then obviously I don't want to get into like some of the rumors and speculation, but given what you see on the field, there's an attention to detail that's not quite there. And I think from a actual X's and O's standpoint, and also like a focus and mentality standpoint, take a break. Like, we're not winning the Super Bowl this year. You're not getting better. And like, take a break. Let's figure out, step back, and this is your coach, dedicated coach. This is what you're going to focus on this week.
So let's actually, I don't think anyone thinks that the Colts are winning the Super Bowl, but they are 4-4. They've been in close games. We saw Joe Flacco lead Browns team to the playoffs last year. Obviously, the offense looks better with him. Do you think that this Colts team is? I mean, because what the messaging? So I'm on our chats for all of our shows where they're talking about like, why is this happening? What are we reporting? Right. They're saying that this isn't about the tap out one play thing. Yeah. This isn't about. This is just like they want to win now. I think the locker room, losing the locker room, is huge too. Do you think they can win now? Like, do you think this team is competitive when you watch them? I mean, how do you feel about them generally?
Yeah, I mean, I think their division, it makes them so. Like, we agree they're not going to make the Super Bowl. They can make the playoffs. I think that they're, to the point that we were making about losing the locker room and managing the locker room, I don't think that the tap out thing is one of those things that doesn't matter unless it matters. And I don't think it matters if he's playing well. I don't think it matters if he's preparing well. I think it matters because the guys are on the roster and they're seeing what's happening. And then this happens on top of the fact that they feel that he's not giving them the best chance to win. I think that this is more about the locker room than it is about trying to make a run at the Super Bowl. Like, they obviously don't think that's going to be the case. I think this week was probably a hard, or they anticipated that this week was going to be a hard weekend in their building. And I guess today is Wednesday, or today's Tuesday, so tomorrow's the first day of practice. And
the Vikings on Sunday Night Football. Whew, that suddenly got a lot more interesting. In some ways. Well, I'll preview that game in depth with Ben Solak later this week. But man, I get it, but I don't know. I don't like the idea of calling it on him, and I know they're not, but it feels like they are. I know, like, this feels. Let me put it this way: Bryce Young was benched week 2, right? Mm-hmm. This is week 8. There's a big difference between week 2, which is like, oh, it's over. Week 8, but is there?
I mean, they're games though. It's not just. I think number of games is a fairer way to do this than the week 2 or week 8, because Anthony Richardson was hurt for almost all of last year. And I think Anthony Richardson also was understood to be a long-term project, and he understands that. So I think the situation is slightly different. Bryce Young is like, he was supposed, like, this is Bryce Young. He was supposed to be.
That's right.
So I think that there's difference in that, and there's different in how you communicate it to him. And Bryce Young wasn't doing anything that you feel like you can hang on. It's like Anthony Richardson does some things. So I think you can go talk to him and say, look, man, let's watch this highlight tape of you doing all this great stuff. We love you. You're going to be our quarterback of the future. But right now, we're not getting anything done. So maybe not. Yeah.
We don't know if that's what's happening. I hope that's what's happening, because
that's what they're going to say to him, whether it's what's happening or not.
But I want to know what's really happening. I want to know internally, do people believe, hey, this kid needs to just more seasoning. Let's put him back on the plan.
Honestly, I think it depends on Irsay and Ballard's relationship. It's like, if this was, because sometimes quarterbacks and GMs get attached. So like, if they're attached, then Ballard is thinking, we're going to figure this out. If they're not attached, Ballard has already sold Irsay. Nah, he ain't it. This gamble didn't work. Don't tie him to me. We're going to bench him and get rid of him and start to find another one.
All right. I'll do Colts Vikings in depth later this week. Let's do a winner. I'll go first.
Okay.
So my winner is the Eagles defense. It could be the whole Philadelphia Eagles team. Obviously, the offense looked excellent against Cincinnati, but Domonique, I was so impressed by the Eagles defense, particularly on second watch, because so the Bengals come in and they don't have T. Higgins. So, which was, I was surprised. I thought he was going to play. My thought was, okay, so the Bengals, like if I'm Vic Fangio, I'm like, great, let's put all of our attention on Jamar Chase. We're going to bracket him. We're going to take him out. We're going to do whatever it takes and make them beat us with other people. Then when you watch, they were manning up Jamar Chase out there. I mean, were you surprised? Like I noticed in real time there were a few reps, and there was, some big plays. Guys like Isaiah Rodgers, right, making that big play. That was shocking. Like Joe Burrow sees Jamar Chase down the side. Of course, you're going to take that every time, and he was amazing. And yeah, Cooper Jean too. He had the big fourth down open field tackle, and that was awesome. But he was, when Jamar was in the slot, he was one-on-one with him quite a few times in this game. And I guess that I mentioned all of this. Obviously, it's one player and one thing, but like I felt like, man, they have really speed run the transformation of this defense, because last year the secondary was old, they were slow, and they went with the youth movement. And I feel like you're already seeing it pay dividends just at the halfway point of the season.
Yeah, I think they're getting better in the secondary, and they have to because they are not dominant up front in the way that they were in the past when they were good. I think what they did this weekend was really impressive from a whole team standpoint, and the young guys are getting better and better. They're going to be good on defense, and they got support offensively. So yeah, I think I was surprised like you at the scheme or the way that they approached this game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is, I think it's smart, honestly, if they believe in the players that they have, and those guys stepped up. But I do think that they got a lot more offensive support, which helps. Like it's different
100%.
when you're anticipating. Like, sure, you can catch all the 8-yard routes that you want to catch if I know that we're going to put up some points, and that changes the pressure that you have as a defender.
No doubt. And the first drive was basically like a let's just sit back and let Joe Burrow carve us up drive. And I was like, oh, this is going to be one of those games, right? Like Vic Fangio was playing passive defense, and Joe's just going to be like, don't mind if I do, pew, 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 pew. But then they turned up the aggression. They played a ton of man coverage in the second half. And to your point, it's a lot easier when you know that the defense, their offense is on the other side of the field, is going to be hunting for big plays, and that they really only have one, dynamite option out there without T. Higgins in the lineup. But nevertheless, the players got to execute, and it's not easy. And this young secondary, there's youth throughout. Like, I think Zach Bond and Nakobe Dean are playing well at linebacker. The defensive line isn't getting a ton of pressure, but they're much better against the run now. I just feel so much better about this defense. I just think back to last year. Like, we were watching this unit and thinking like they were not even, I don't want to say trying, but this was one of the hardest.
I mean, that's what people were saying that. Like you and I weren't saying that, but people were saying that they were not trying. They were trying. They just were bad.
Yeah. So I don't think they're, like the best defense in the NFL or whatever, but it feels like they hit on a lot of their picks and additions. Right. And it feels like if the offense can play anything close to what we saw against Cincinnati, and they were spectacular, this once again, I felt like, oh, this feels much more like the 2022 Eagles team than the 2023 Eagles team in a way that I haven't felt in quite some time.
Yeah, I mean, the defense definitely felt good. They're playing different style now, like to your point, that more aggressive style, and that's a shift. It's putting pressure on the DBs and taking pressure off of the D-line, because the D-line is, like when you play that passive style, like the D-line is going to have to get there. Yeah. And I think I know this is about the defense, and as a defensive player, I shouldn't keep doing this, but like I think the most important thing was they had all their weapons on offense, and their offense was clicking. That changes everything. That O-line, they can run the ball, they can throw deep to AJ, and that makes life a whole lot easier for everybody. And it allows them to be more aggressive. It allows their defense to pick and choose the moments where they're going to put guys in man coverage in tough situations. So when it
Yeah.
all works together, they're going to be good. The question is, can Jalen Hurts keep this up, and will they stay healthy?
Jalen Hurts, best game in
Yeah,
quite some time, man. He was
long time.
awesome. Turns out, having top two receivers pretty important. It's funny because you could even simplify it to like one side had their 1A, 1B, one side didn't, but that was
Yeah,
obviously a massive factor in this one. I've mentioned this quite a bit last week, but I also am really loving seeing how they're running Saquon from under center. The run game looks a lot better. They're not as reliant on, those Hurts keepers. They got
yeah.
Hurts going north south, which is he looks good because he's
Mhm.
big and relatively fast for his size, but he's not as explosive as he was going east west, and it feels like they're kind of accepting that now, right? And the run game is evolving with it. So I really liked what I saw from the offense. I thought they were fantastic, and it feels like I don't know, just the whole team looks a lot better. I feel very good about the Eagles right now.
Good.
All right, your winner is another NFC team.
Atlanta Falcons.
Ooh, baby.
Yeah, I think maybe I'll make the winner the Falcons fans, like rather than the Falcons as a team specifically. But it's been a long time that they've been drafting these awesome weapons,
Yeah,
and it's just been fun. Like there are some teams that we watch because we have to get ready for the show, and there's some teams that you watch, you're like, oh, this is fun. And
yes,
even in losses, I watch this team and I'm like, this is fun. And Pitts is turning into a player, and Drake is having some plays. And I mean, Bijan, even when Bijan does a 6 or 7 yard run, it's so fun. Like it's fun. And Kirk Cousins is doing bad raps, which is always entertaining. So yeah, this team is, and they have the good fortune of 2 wins against the Bucks, and other teams in their division are not serious outfits.
yeah. I think that's huge. The 2 wins against the Bucks. Man, if Kirk Cousins played the Bucks every week, he'd be MVP. Because holy smoke, some of the throws he
Yeah,
made in this game
yeah.
too. Like I didn't watch this in real time. So 276 yards, 4 touchdowns, nearly an 80% completion rate, and it's just some beautiful, beautiful
Do
throws.
you do you remember when after week 1 when we were all concerned about Kirk
Well,
Cousins because he could barely move? It
he
was
still can't
fucking
move.
crazy. Yeah. But I mean, it mattered then, and he couldn't throw, and they oh no, he wasn't doing play action, and
Yeah,
he
he still
wasn't under
hasn't done
center,
it. He
and we
still
were
hasn't
super.
done it.
Yeah, I
I
guess
think
we
I think
just
I Dominique, I will say I think it matters against some teams. I don't think it matters
yeah
against the Bucks. However, that's not to take away from the fact that this offense, I agree with you. It's a joy to watch. The playmakers
yeah
are awesome, and Kirk is an absolute he's really really accurate. It's fun to watch an accurate quarterback throw the ball downfield to really really good players. Darnell Mooney, oh
yeah
my god,
yeah.
what a
He's
year
having a
he's
year, man.
having,
Yeah,
right? Whoo, buddy.
yeah.
Turns out, again, like having a quarterback who can throw accurately deep. And I will say this, Kirk can't move, but you are seeing what you saw in Minnesota in one respect, which is that man will stand in there and take a hit. That might be the difference between him and Rodgers, by the way, coming off of the Achilles,
Yeah,
right? Because Kirk's like, ah, and then
yeah,
five pass rushers are bearing down on him, and it's a beautiful ball up the middle of the field, post to moon. I mean, he's pretty courageous out there. And but yeah, like the oh my god, that one throw, the Mooney throw was incredible. Tight window
oh, it's great.
throw, the touchdown. I mean, the corner. I mean,
Yeah,
he's a good quarterback.
yeah. He's a good
The
quarterback,
reason
and it's been
why
fun to watch.
I wish I felt better about their defense, but
Yeah, yeah. I like so many of their defensive players. Well, their secondary players, I guess.
they
Yeah, yeah. Um, and the cornerback from Clemson. Why can't I remember his name right now? But I like him.
well,
Terrell, AJ
yeah,
Terrell. I like him too. But yeah, that's
6 for 8
rest of
for
that
94
defense.
yards under pressure. Perfect passer rating in the intermediate throws. He was actually really good from the pistol in this one too, which was kind of interesting because they're still trying to figure out a way to get that pistol
Yeah,
run game going. But it doesn't matter. And Bijan's exceptional, 54%
yeah,
success rate. Just every run looks good.
yeah. It's fun to watch, and yeah, the Rodgers comparison is interesting because you remember Rodgers was like he wasn't reliant on his athleticism and the way that you think about running quarterbacks, but we all know like Rodgers bought so much time with athleticism,
Yeah.
and watching Kirk Cousins, it's like I never bought time with my athleticism, so I don't miss these Achilles at all. Hit me in the jaw while I throw a touchdown pass.
That's a good point. Yeah, he's not. It's not really
Yeah,
a. He used to boot, but the
yeah.
playmaking has never been. Although he had a scramble. My heart leapt out of my chest watching him take off.
Uh,
Um, I mean, can I say something? If Aaron Rodgers was making the throws that Kirk Cousins made in this game, Get Up would do like 2 hours on it, 3 hours. I don't care if it's a 2 hour show. It'd be a 3 hour highlight reel. I'm telling you, he was. I know. I don't think
yeah.
I haven't even seen people talk about this. He was slinging it out there.
Yeah, yeah, we haven't talked much about it, but no, you're right, and so that's why we talk about it on your show. He was slinging it out there, guys. Congratulations, Atlanta Falcons fans.
Listen, the division, it's the NFC South.
Yeah,
I'm picking them right now. They're
yeah,
my pick.
no, they should
Okay,
definitely.
let's wrap with your woof. Oh God, this could be such a longer conversation. The
Yeah,
Ravens defense in particular, and I want to talk about the defense because the offense was. It was. I thought Lamar was fine. He was
yeah,
not perfect. This was not his best game, but he was definitely not why they lost.
yeah.
Some pretty horrible drops on both sides of the ball. But what I want to ask you about the defense in particular is if you had to pick one problem with this Ravens defense, and obviously the pass defense has fallen off of a cliff and they're amongst the worst in the NFL in a number of metrics. When you were watching them against Jameis Winston, what stuck out to you?
They can't rush the passer.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's the one problem. Is they can't rush the passer without blitzing,
Yep.
and yeah, and the
And
injuries in the
blitzing a lot.
secondary. Yeah,
The 5-man. So Jameis was barely pressured in this one. He was kept perfectly clean behind an offensive line that has been awful this year. Some guys have come back, but the Ravens 5-man rush had a 16% pressure rate. That's bad.
that's very bad. That's
That's
very bad. And
bad.
I think it was great, not great, but it was accurate that the game winning play was the Ravens doing a zero blitz. It's like, and they did multiple zero blitzes on that final drive because they're like, man, we got to get some pressure. Let's send everybody. And that's no way to live. Those are like, yeah,
Especially when back there you have Eddie Jackson, Jalen Armour, David. So the thing about this game, I was not watching closely, and when I saw the score, I was like, "Oh, it's the Ravens defense." I'm sure there's like a lot of busted coverages that explain.
nope.
No, that wasn't the case at all. It was the lack of pressure, and then the fact that they were overcompensating for that pressure down the stretch, and the Browns were hunting the backups as they should be. But I don't know how much of it, like Zach Orr. I don't look at that and say, "Oh, you lost him that game," but he has not found a way to make more pressure with
That's
less the way that they have in the past. And again, like do they have the players? Do they need more players? I don't know. They're just
so.
they're not getting after the quarterback right now.
So creating one-on-ones is one way to get pressure. Then it's on the players. He's been able to create some one-on-ones, and those guys aren't winning. So you can blame the players for that. But I think their best game so far this season was the Bills game. And in that game, what we saw time and time again was they were getting free runners without max blitzing. And it was as if the Bills were not prepared for the simulated pressure package. I haven't rewatched this game very closely. I watched to see like the coverages and whatnot, but the sims aren't working anymore. I don't see that many free runners. So like maybe you need some new sims, or maybe people are max protecting, and then you should max cover. But it doesn't seem like they're generating pressure with scheme.
Yeah.
In the same way that they were in that Bills game.
Yeah. They are 15th in sack rate this year, 4th last year. Pass rush win, they're fallen to 18th. They were top 10 last year. I mean, all the numbers show this. Anytime you've got a 40% blitz rate and the quarterback has an over 4-second time to throw, that was Jameis Winston.
What?
Some of that, yeah.
Over 4 seconds?
Some of that was exacerbated by a few plays where they didn't, but yeah, it's not good. And it is, I would seriously consider making a move, Domonique, because this should be a Super Bowl team. Your offense is good enough. They'll play better than they did against a very good Cleveland Browns defense, by the way. But you're just not getting enough up front. They played Ngakoue over Ajabo's no longer in the starting lineup. Always okay. I mean, the best pass rusher was Kyle Hamilton against Cleveland. That's not good. That's not a good thing, guys. So yeah, it's actually, I thought it would be like so complex, and I actually don't think it's that complex for Baltimore.
Get somebody who can get the quarterback.
Who's available? Azeez Ojulari? I don't know. We'll see. All right, that's it for this week. Catch me later this week on the Domonique Foxworth Show on Friday. Also on this program, we'll be back to preview the entire Week 9 slate of games with Ben Solak. We'll be talking about Anthony Richardson more then. Still wrapping my mind around that one. Otherwise, that's it for now. I'll talk to you guys later.